Alright, so what we got here is the Hammerhead Performance intake and exhaust kit. They sell this as a bundle, or you can buy these individually. You can get the intake by itself, or you can buy this whole combo. You can also buy the exhaust by itself. I think you can buy the mufflers if you need parts. So start off here. This is the intake pipe. So you can see the Hammerhead Performance logo there. I think it's a cool looking piece. Welds look nice. Fit and finish. I think these things are great. I think they've got a nice kit they put together. Intake kind of reminds me of back in the day when we used to mess with cars. It's kind of shrinks down on the intake tube. Now I know they're doing that to match the car, but you know, there used to be performance games from that. They call it I think it was a Venturi effect. Someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, you've got your uni filter clamps onto there, and then this attaches to your carb. One thing, if I had a small gripe about this kit, it would be this coupler here on the intake. I wish it was just a hair longer, like maybe an 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. The reason I say that is it's just kind of, I mean, look how tight it is on the with the 2 clamps on the coupler. I mean, it works. There's no issues. I just think it would, you know, it'd fit a little better if they gave you a little more room on that coupler. So along with the intake, you know, you're getting more air in. You're going to need to up the jets. You can select when you check out what kind of carb jets you want. I just went through and installed this kit on this Hammerhead here. And yeah, right now it's got a 128 and a 38 idle jet in it, and it seems to be close. I think the 128's a hair rich. So on this one, I'm going to try a 125. And then on the idle, I think I'm a little rich too, so I'm going to try the 35. So yeah, I mean, my elevation, I think, is somewhere around 600 to 800 feet above sea level. So that seems to be a good combo for me. So yeah, you got your intake, you get the jets, and then here's the exhaust kit here. Now here's your pipe, which just comes off the head, wraps around. This is where it attaches to the muffler. I think it's a cool looking piece. I mean, it's stainless, looks like it's TIG welded. Welds look real nice. And you know, you don't see any crazy crush bends in the pipe, anything like that. So yeah, I think fit and finish, it's a great kit. I will say, when I did on the yellow cart I didn't like this edge here. And this probably would depend on what kind of gasket you run for the on the head to where it meets this flange. But what I did was I took a little carbide bit and then grinded this down to smooth it out, so as air's coming out of the head, it's not hitting any of these lips. So once I grinded it down, it was a curved edge, so if air comes out, you know, it'll just curve around. So again, that depends on the gasket. I'll talk about gaskets here in a second. But that's something I did on my kit. Here is the muffler. It's got the Hammerhead logo, Performance logo on it. I got the silver one. Usually I do black. I like the way the black one looks, but they were sold out. I thought the silver as a second choice would be good. You know, this thing's got some red accents too. I didn't think red would look good on an exhaust, so I went with silver. Might complement the silver bumpers and all the chrome hardware and all that. So yeah, that was my choice. So the way this kit works is this just goes on here, and then you bolt the little Allen heads to attach the two together. I will say on the, I already installed one of these on this guy, and I learned a lot installing it. One of the big things was, my idea is, oh, I'll just install this, right? Because it'll be a little easier to get up in there. And then I will attach the muffler after this. You know, it's going to basically leave this a little loose, just hanging, and then attach the muffler and the strap and all that stuff. You're under the buggy trying to attach this And you got, you know, while you're kind of trying to do that, this thing's wanting to, you know, there's a little bit of play in there, kind of both ways, and then it's wanting to, just from the, you know, just from the weight of it, is wanting to pull down. So as you're trying to line up this hardware in there, which there's play in there too, it causes to where you could very easily strip out the hardware. So, you know, one of the biggest things I learned from installing these was pre-install this first. Another reason why I did that was because I didn't know the rotation, you know, how to rotate it. I was trying to keep the logo out. And once we get going, I'll show you there, because I've got one installed, so I know which hole to line up where, and we'll get into that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I put a towel around the pipe, so when I go to clamp it down, it doesn't mar up the pipe. I'm not going to crank this down. Here's what we're looking at here, where I ported and kind of round off those edges. So if you put this base gasket on there, you can see there's no more rough edges. What you want to do is line up the logo. See how this pipe comes around here and you have this hole? You're going to want to line, if you want your logo facing to the side like this on the buggy, you're going to want to line that hole like that. So it's basically running in line with the pipe. And so that's the way I'm going. I mean, if you wanted it face down, you could go, you know, that way. But then your Hammerhead logo on the back is going to be, so doing it, lining it up that way, your Hammerhead logo and everything's straight and level. Alright, so here's what I came up with, since I don't have a ratchet head for my ratchets, so I'm going to use this to give me a little, make it a little easier on my hands. I still had a little bit of an issue with the threads being tight, I would recommend this. I would go ahead and run this hardware into your muffler without the exhaust hooked up, just to make sure you don't feel any tension. I think what's going on is the manufacturer might be putting a little too much thread lock on these bolts, and as you're cranking them in, they're just getting super tight. And it's making them hard to attach when you've got an Allen head, and it puts you at a high risk to strip them out. So I would do that, make sure it's good. If you have any problems, just take a little wire brush, knock off some of that thread lock on your threads, and I think you'll be golden. Hardware wise, all you're going to need, other than the muffler Allen heads, is you just need one of the Allen bolts going on a Hammerhead GTS. Take a washer, lock washer, and that's going to replace this factory bolt that held the muffler up. The reason you need the aftermarket one is, well, it's going to look a little better, but two is the OEM one has this large gap in the threads where the rubber hanger, you know, it was thicker, so they left this gap here. So if you go to attach the factory one, what's going to happen is it's going to leave that gap and not thread all the way in. So this just basically goes around the muffler. This goes through here, attaches to your clutch cover, and you're golden. Other than that, the kit does not include an exhaust gasket. So this is the gasket where the flange meets the head. So you've got two options. You can go base gasket or donut style gasket. OEM is donut style gasket. I've typically used base gaskets. The reason being is if you get the right base gasket, there's a much wider opening. I mean, these are over 27 millimeter, where if you get a donut style gasket, it's going to be around 23 millimeter. So the downside is I've got a aftermarket Glixel head here, which is similar to the OEM head in that the factory head has these casting marks in the flange. So what I'm seeing is it seems like people are still installing these, but I did not install one of those on my other Hammerhead because I didn't see this being a sealing surface. Now, with that being said, this donut gasket was a pain because what happens is your donut gasket just wants to fall out. It doesn't stay in there. So you're trying to fight that to keep it in there. So I got it finally in. I don't notice any sealing issues. So this is entirely up to you. It seems like people are running this and I'm not hearing of any problems, but you know, some of the other installs, they seem to just put this on here. I'm going to be swapping the head, the OEM head, to this Naraku. And what you'll see is if you get a good quality head, we got the exhaust valve, so exhaust side is they machine that area to where you can put a bigger gasket on. Now, better quality stuff too, you put this in here and that fits in there tight. It doesn't want to fall out. So I'll definitely be running this just for you know, just for size sake. They also notched that out to give you a little more clearance, where if you look at the Glixel here, which is kind of like your OEM head, see that's hitting there. So this is entirely up to you how you want to approach this. I think my next one, I would probably just go ahead and run one of these. Anymore though, I'm gonna slap a head on them. I mean, it's, you know, it seems to be a noticeable difference upgrading the head. So, you know, if it's in the budget, as you're doing the exhaust, I would go ahead and just upgrade, you know, your head while you got everything torn apart. And this is a no-brainer at that point. So we're going to start off on the cart by removing the air box. We've got a bolt down here we got to take out. We've got a bolt on the top side, and there is a hose clamp where the air box connects to the carb. We'll loosen those up, pop the air box out, and that'll give us access to the carb where you can move the carb and start rejetting. Alright, so we've got the air box off, and what we need to do here, remove the throttle cable, which we can just spin this. I'm trying to do this one-handed. And pull that out. And then what I like to do is I remove the 2 screws here to just take the whole bracket out, and then that way I don't have to readjust the throttle cable. And once we do that, we got to remove the 2 screws on the choke cable right here, and then undo the vacuum lines and the fuel lines. So to change the jets, you want to just pull these 4 screws off the bottom of your bowl. You already drained the gas using this screw right here, so there shouldn't be any gas. There's probably going to be, you know, something in there, but this carb's new, so it shouldn't be bad. So you can see nice and clean. Now if you're taking apart a factory carb that's run a little bad, you'll want to clean that out real good. When we put this back on, we want to make sure this gasket's clean. And then your jets are right here and right here, so you need a flathead screwdriver to remove those 2. Okay, so when we reinstall everything, we just basically do the opposite. This just pushes and here, and we have our, that's your choke cable. And you just put the 2, we got to put the 2 screws in there, and then if you got a magnetic screwdriver, I would suggest using that. Then screws are super small. Then we'll just have to hook up our vacuum lines, which all we've got is a T, one to the intake manifold and one to the petcock. That's all we run, so you can see that. And we'll hook back up the fuel line. Yeah, so here's what I'm noticing. If I clamp, push that in, see how the tabs don't line up? I'm sure this is a problem because the Chinese buggies, you know what I mean, there's so many, probably not a crazy tolerance with how they spec these, but what happens is this is going to basically crimp down and is pulling up on that coupler where I was talking about. That coupler was kind of short, and then it's pulling down on these wires a little bit. So what I'm going to do is we'll see if this works. Basically, try to bend this up a little bit. Oh yeah, that's super easy. Yeah, see how much better that fits now? Okay, so I'm kind of a stickler about wiring. So I ran the coil wires up to kind of tuck them up nice and clean. And then, you know, I pulled these off because they, see, look how loose that is. I mean, I shouldn't pull by the wire to do that, but it's so loose I wasn't really worried about it. And then the other thing is this terminals looked a little nasty, so I'm just gonna, this is the wire brush, the only wire brush I have, so I'm just gonna clean those up a little bit. Just to give it the, you know, the best connection possible. I mean, this is your ignition system. So I'll do this, I'll put a little dielectric grease and crimp those connectors down so they're nice and tight. See, they're, you can see that, they're shiny again. Alright, so dielectric grease, kind of doing this one-handed. I'm just going to put a little dab on my finger and kind of put on those connections. Again, just while I'm in there, I see that, I want to clean that up. So I'm just going to crimp these. I don't want to crimp on the shielding because I don't want to put a hole in it, but, and I'm not going to go super tight, just a little bit. I don't want a little too much. And we'll do the same on this guy. So we had green on bottom. Now we're tight. Yeah, see, that's not coming off now. That's what you want. 10 horsepower right there. It says to keep this is the oil, this is the pre-filter. It says to keep 12 inches. So we're just gonna spray it on there, give it a good coat. It said to do inside and outside. And it says to let it sit 3 to 5 minutes and then massage it in. I'm going to do the inside filter as well. So I just pulled the red off of this, it just slides off. We've got some lint or something on there. So we're just going to do the same thing. Let this sit for 3 to 5 minutes. We'll rub it in and it should be good. Okay, I'm just taking my gloves and then I'm just massaging it in, following the instructions here. I sprayed the inside and the outside, so I'd say we got pretty good coverage, not to mention I have this stuff all over my gloves. So the pre-filter should be good. We're going to do the same with the inside filter, and you don't want to damage the foam, but it does say to massage it, so got to get it ready. And then it just also says to clean off the rubber. It's probably so when we go to clamp it on, it's not as slippery. Okay, we're just going to pop this filter on here. Let's see if she fires right up. Fill the bowl with gas, fuel. There we go. So it sounds throatier, feels more responsive. Feels quicker. But we didn't get any more top speed out of it. I just felt like it got there much quicker. That's opinion, but it feels quicker. It sounds throatier too. It feels a little more responsive. Alright guys, so we're going to pull this exhaust off. You've got this bolt you got to take off. This just basically is a bracket, from my understanding, to hold the muffler up. The Hammerheads are a two-piece exhaust, so it looks like we can pop those springs off and make the exhaust two pieces, so we can pull off a little easier. And then you will have these two nuts right here that hold the exhaust to the head. Now this has, I think this is the EGR is what this is called. We'll bypass all that stuff when we pull this, we put the new exhaust on. So we're going to take a 13mm to remove this. And that was pretty tight. Alright guys, something to double check is, if you look up here, well, two things. One is, you can see the casting marks I'm kind of referring to when I talk about gaskets. Number two is, our donut gasket here is still in here. So make sure that comes out, because it'd be very easy to mistake that for being part of the head, because it's flush and it's pressed in. So make sure you double check and pull this out. So we're gonna have to get this out. Now you can see that. Let's see if we can get it out with the hook. you're going to want to clean this old gasket material off and just clean any of the surfaces. I like to use brake cleaner. I'm out of brake cleaner right now. I'm just using some acetone I got. That looks good. So this round we're going to go ahead and put a base gasket up here. You can see it at least wants to stay up there. Okay, I'm going to slide a piece of cardboard down so I don't scratch up the muffler on the concrete. This is that Allen bolt we talked about that you're going to need. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put one bolt through here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I just want something to help hold the muffler when I go to slide that in. So I don't want this tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed it up through here, and then I'll rest it on this and attach it at the head. And then once I get the head, I'm not going to fully tighten the head, but once I get the nut started on the head, then I'll pull this, I'll undo this and pull this in. Okay, so we're just going to fish this through here. Okay, so see, that gives me a second set of hands. So now I can get up under here. So you've got a lock washer you got to put on there, and then we're going to put the kind of holding the lock washer up while I'm threading this on. Again, I'm just trying to make sure that the lock washer doesn't fall off while I'm trying to get this lined up. Alright, so I hand tightened it on the head, so now what I'm going to do is, it's still got a little bit of wiggle room. I'm going to get this rubber and everything straight, and then pull this back off. I'm just going to hold this so it doesn't, not that it would fall down, but I don't want to put a bunch of pressure on the studs on the head. Okay, so we need to come up a little more. Making sure my rubber is lined up, which it all looks good. It's in there. Okay, so now that's supported. So what we're going to do is just tighten these down. I'm not going to crank these down like super hard, but I'm going to get them a little snug since that those castings on the head, I just want to make sure this seals. You don't want to go super tight on these. You break a stud on the head and that can be a bad day. I mean, if it breaks up in the head, you'd probably be better off just replacing the head at that point. With the cost, you can get a decent performance one and the amount of work. Right, so the bolts on the head are tightened, so I'm just going to tighten this up now. Okay, so with this being stainless, we want to make this look nice. So what you want to do is you want to clean the pipe and everything else, because the oils from your hands, work and all of that is on this pipe. So when it burns in, when it gets hot, if you don't clean that off, it's going to show in your finish. So I'm just taking some, I'm just taking the same thing, the acetone, to kind of clean off any oils or anything just from handling. All right, first startup. Got the choke in.